Hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today I want to go over my Khora build. Well, it's actually going to be a build for Khora, Venari, my stat stick for Khora, and I'm quickly just going to show you the build I'm using on Fluffy, my helmet charger. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some of the changes and tweaks that Khora has received and that have, at least in my humble opinion, made her better. And let us start off with Khora herself. So the setup I'm using focuses a lot on Whipclaw, but also has a lot of quality of life stuff. And it's a 3-format setup where I've reformatted the aura polarity into a dash and I've added a D and a V. The aura I decided to use is Energy Siphon because I wanted as much energy as possible, but you can go with Corrosive Projection to strip away a little bit of the enemy armor, or you can go with something like Steel Charge, which will give you more mod capacity and some melee damage, or you can even stick to the original D polarity and use something like Rejuvenation. Then for the Exodus slot, I decided to go with Handspring because number one, it already comes with the dash polarity, but also number two, I quite like Handspring. I've been using it on Sarin for quite a while now in Sanctuary Onslaught, and it's just really nice. The faster knockdown recovery is just really cool. Then I wanted to get some range for Whipclaw, so I'm using Stretch and Augur Reach because it now also scales the Sonic Boom, the explosion you get with Whipclaw, and with something like this, which is 75% power range, you can actually cover a pretty sizable area. And I have a feeling they adjusted the hitbox of the Whipclaw as well, because it feels like it's much easier to hit things with it now. Now after this comes some beefiness, so we have Steel Fiber for armor and Vitality for health. This provides survivability for me, but also both my companions since they're using link mods. Then I'm using Primed Continuity here just to kind of balance out some of the negative duration I have on this build so that both Ensnare and Strangledome last a decent amount of time. And if you don't have Primed Continuity, the standard version is going to be fine as well. After that, I'm running Hunter Adrenaline, which will number one convert damage done to my health into energy, so it actually helps me sustain energy for Whipclaw, and number two, it gives me another piece of the Hunter Scent bonus, which provides more damage for companions against enemies that have slash procs on them. Then for good measure, I added a little bit of extra power strength with Intensify for a tiny bit more damage, but it's actually not necessary. You can swap this out for something else if you want. And I finished it off with Freezing Expertise, which gives me loads of efficiency and makes my abilities a lot cheaper. Then for the stat stake, I'm using the Gazelle Machete, but you can use whatever you want because the stats of the weapon don't matter. What matters is the mods, because those will scale the damage of your Whipclaw. So we started off with the stance, doesn't matter which one it is, we just want the extra capacity. We have Primed Pressure Point and Spot Strike for damage. Then we have True Steel for crit chance, Organ Chatter for crit damage, and I'm using a Riven because I have one. This was actually given to me as a gift and it adds a bunch of slash damage. Then, since Whipclaw will build and be affected by your combo counter, we're using Drifting Contact for the longer combo duration and some extra status chance, and I topped it all off with Vicious Frost and Primed Fever Strike for viral damage and a little bit of extra status. Then comes Venari, where I have a 4-format build where I've added 3 Vs and 1 D. And even though it might look like I've overformatted Venari just a wee little bit, it's actually more me future-proofing because I'm currently in the process of maxing out all the companion mods, so I format her in a way so that even if I max everything out, it will still fit. And the mods I'm using are number one Scavenge, which gives her a 90% chance to open locked lockers, and this is because she comes with an ability polarity, and the only two things that you can reasonably put in there are Scavenge and Territorial Aggression, which is useless because it pacifies wildlife. So I was like, more loot or Sleepy Kubros? I'm gonna go for more loot. After that, I'm using Sharpened Claws, which is an attack that does a buttload of damage, but more importantly, it will strip away the target's armor. Even if it's like a level 100 Bombard, she will hit it and its armor is gone. It is super strong. Then to beef her up a little bit, I'm using Link Health and Link Armor, which gives her a bunch of health and armor. Then I have Animal Instinct, which is a mod that I just cannot play without anymore. It's just too good, the Loot Radar and Enemy Radar, I love it. Then I slapped on Swipe, which is an attack that Kavat can perform and it will hit 4 targets within 2 meters of the Kavat. I also put on Hunter Synergy for the crit link, Hunter Recovery for the lifesteal link, Bite for crit chance and damage, and finally Maul for melee damage. And you know what, since I was going full Beastmaster and I actually enjoyed this setup quite a lot, I decided to slap one more format onto Fluffy, which is my helmet charger, so he's now using a pretty beefy 6-format build as well. Now, my goal with this wasn't to make the greatest setup in the world, it was just to make an enjoyable and fun setup that can do the majority of the content in the game, because I don't really do endurance runs anymore, so level 100 is basically as high as I will go. And if every now and then I want to go into Sanctuary Onslaught and get into the higher zones, I'm just gonna use Sarin. But that doesn't mean that the setup doesn't do damage. It does, even versus armored units. Especially if you grab the enemies with Ensnare first, because that will make your Whipclaw do double damage and leave behind some very nasty slash procs. You could also combo it with Strangledome and kind of spread the damage out that way, though I mostly use Strangledome as sort of an oh shit button when things go very wrong. But that's just the Grineer. What about the other factions, like the Infested for example? Well, it's actually pretty strong. Even versus the Corpus, it decimates even the higher tier units, even the Robotics with just a couple of hits. I was honestly not expecting it to perform this well, even though I do know how these kinds of abilities, abilities that scale with melee mods tend to be. And that makes me very happy, because Khora has sort of become my main. I don't know, I've never really had a main in Warframe. I played a lot of, Atlas, Necros, Rhino, Inaros. But this right here, this is my jam. I mentioned this in the Khora review. I am big into companion-based characters. If, for example, I start playing an ARPG, chances are the first character is either going to be a Necromancer or a Minionmancer or a Warlock that summons demons. So even just having Venari on top of having Fluffy makes me enjoy this more than any other frame in the game. And that's why I went for this kind of setup, the setup that I like, a fairly beefy setup with some quality of life stuff. Something that's beefy enough to tank its way through sorties without having to be revived over and over and over again, which this definitely is. It has a ton of health, it has a ton of armor, especially if you have Arcane Guardian for the extra flat armor. And I'm using double life stealing from the Hunter mods. I have it on both Fluffy and Venari, so they're both leeching life to me. And if shit were to really hit the fan, I can just drop down Strangledome or switch Venari to the healing mode. The damage of this setup was more of an afterthought for me. I would have been more than happy to just run around with a strong weapon instead, but it turned out great, which is a nice bonus. I absolutely love this setup. I think it's great, and I don't even care that I don't have vacuum and I have to run around all over the place to pick up loot. It's just a lot of fun, and if you're a fan of companion-based characters, I would recommend you check this out. You don't have to invest as much format as I did, just try it out without any format to see if you like it or not, but if you do, definitely give this a shot. And oh my goodness, I've been blabbering for almost 7 minutes, so I thank you very much for watching, as always guys, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.